Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to UnSpun. This is your host, Jan Irvin, with my co-host, Joe Atwill, and we're joined by Dean. Dean, what's your last name again? I don't know how to pronounce your last name.
It's Fougere. It's very difficult. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'm glad I didn't try to slaughter that on you. Anyway, he also goes by Titus Frost. He created PizzaGate, the documentary, and we were hoping to have him on last week. Things got switched around, so Titus is on this week. Welcome to the show, Titus. We're really good to have you. This has been a really dark subject. You've done a lot of research on this. You've probably even done more research on this topic than Joe and I have, and I think you've tracked down a lot of primary research on this. So we wanted to get you on. Glad to have you. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I've been continuing the research as well, so there's still lots more to put out there.
Yeah, and what is this? I guess this is UnSpun episode number 49, so get that out there.
But does that mean that Titus is the 49th most important person on our show?
That's bad karma right there.
No, it's not. No, he's the most important person on our show, but he's the 48th most important person in Washington, D.C. So Titus, I wanted to congratulate you on your documentary. I thought that was really an important part of the whole phenomena that now has kind of swept everywhere. You see mainstream media really ridiculing it. I don't know if you caught The View, I think it was yesterday, where the three witches just started cackling about how crazy PizzaGate was, how insane it was. You've been doing, research in it from the very beginning. Would you like to basically give, just an overview of the research?
Yeah, so it all kicked off when I saw some obvious code words being talked about on 4chan, which I go to, for laughs and things like that. But also I'm on Steemit, and I saw some articles on there which put some financial connections to the whole thing, which still have not been debunked at all. And the research just went from there. We found the connection to the underground section there, and the fact that tunnels do run directly under there that connect to the White House and things like that. And obviously, there's the emails from Podesta himself, which have been forensically tied to his computer. And WikiLeaks has never put out any information that has been proven invalid yet. So for them to call this, Russian propaganda or whatever, they'd have to actually prove those claims. And knowing just who is into researching this type of stuff, different people basically have put all the information out there, and none of it's been debunked by any of the mainstream media that I've seen. I mean, they've attacked bits and pieces of it, but they haven't attacked the real hardcore information.
Absolutely.
They refuse to put up the pictures that are pretty damning that, Alefantis put himself out on the internet. So, I mean, it's not like we made the information up. We just went there and saw this information that was publicly available. And we just, put two and two together and went where the evidence leads us. And until that evidence is refuted, and this needs to be investigated, and it shouldn't be investigated by the people who are implicated, which is the Washington Post, New York Times, and all their, all those guys.
What do you have to say to people that the evidence, and I personally agree with the evidence, what do you have to say to people that the evidence of these code words regarding pizza and these things aren't strong enough, or it's just circumstance? And I've seen quite a number of people try to dismiss this. I think it's solid, and I've poured through the evidence for many hours. But how do you overcome these types of objections to people?
The financial transactions, okay? And those aren't circumstantial. You can do FEC searches and find the Clinton Foundation sending money to a pizza place and thousands of dollars. There's 3 transactions by George Soros that are $11,000 each to a pizza place. And there's also the email from Obama ordering $65,000 worth of hot dogs and pizza to be flown into the White House when the White House doesn't accept food from outside sources. So all of those financial transactions and more are extraordinarily damning. And even if, we can't get them for the pedophilia stuff, you can probably find some tax evasion going on in there. And if you remember, Al Capone was even brought down by taxes. So going after them for tax evasion might not be a bad idea. And I've been talking to some private investigators and, discussing pricing in order to get a private investigator to actually go after these people. Because the circumstantial evidence thing was a mainstream media talking point to divert people away from the fact that there is hardcore evidence here. And the emails, along with the financial transactions and all of the artwork and all of the other stuff combined together, are a very good case for something going on here. And just because our law enforcement agencies are completely corrupt and unable to do anything about this doesn't mean that it shouldn't be investigated by someone.
Right. I thought that the video showing Majestic Ape performing at Comic Pizza, where she promoted pedophilia. In other words, she was talking about how grateful everyone should be to be down here, down underneath the subway. She used the expression subway sandwich. But, and then, she said, and then this one individual, Jerry, may show up, and then, someone called out, and then he likes little boys. And then someone called out he likes children. And then Majestic Ape had this demonic laugh, and then she said, or he said, whoever it is, well, we all have our preferences. Now, my point is that that, and then everyone laughed, right? Now, my point is that you couldn't have that humor understood by a group if it wasn't a culture that accepted and promoted pedophilia. It just wouldn't be funny or comprehensible. When Majestic Ape says to the crowd, we all have our preferences, that isn't something that would happen at a normal nightclub. That wouldn't happen with a normal culture that a comic was addressing. That indicates that there is something that is related to pedophilia that is endemic into that group of people. And so I thought that was just, in terms of starting an investigation in a sane society, that was just absolutely concrete evidence that you should go forward, because you have to answer the question, why does everyone think that pedophilia, particularly about little boys, is something that is appropriate to make fun of, make laughter about?
Yeah, and I totally agree. I mean, obviously those videos were pretty damning evidence because they're some of the most heavily censored videos on YouTube for copyright. In fact, if anyone even put those into their videos, I know they got a DMCA copyright strike against their account. So anyone who was criticizing the situation, like, I wanted to put those videos in the documentary I did, but I had to just put a screenshot of it in one of the videos I did, because there's no way that you can do that with those videos because they are so damning. And yeah, I've been to a lot of places and I've never heard anyone, making pedophilia jokes and stuff. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like,
right, when someone calls out from the audience, right? There was calling out, two people called out from the audience, making fun of basically promoting pedophilia. And then Majestic Ape has the demonic laugh and he goes, well, we all have our preferences, which is just clear as a bell that they're talking about the preference of pedophilia. Just there's just no way to understand the grammar. So, that should be the grounds for an investigation, just flat out. You can't do anything more clear than that, in my opinion.
Now, what was this false flag shooter's name again? Now I'm forgetting his name.
Edgar Madison Welch.
Yeah, let's talk about him for a moment. What we have here in the case of this shooter is yet another actor and a shooting. How does it always happen that shooters are actors? The coincidence meter gets ding-dinged on that kind of stuff whenever that happens. And he was also doing work in Haiti, another coincidence, ding-ding. And his father ran an organization to protect children, wasn't it, for pedophilia or something? So yet another coincidence, ding-ding. But what can you tell us about this guy?
Well, I mean, I didn't do a whole bunch of digging into him. I just looked at, I looked at his father's Facebook page, which was publicly available, and it had a grand total of 5 pictures up on it. And as far as I saw, 1 post. And whenever I look into, I looked into the Orlando nightclub shooting at Pulse, which was another false flag. And whenever you look into these and you look at some of the victims or some of the people involved, supposedly, it seems to be a pretty good pattern that when they're completely fake people involved, or, just an actor or something of that nature, like in this case, their Facebook accounts and stuff like that normally have very little stuff on them. And the dad's had 4 posts, and he's supposed to be a movie producer. So I find that pretty not believable. I mean, you'd think that he'd be promoting his, movies and all that through his, social media like we all do.
Now, well, the one thing I want to interject here is that Alefonsus's ex lover was David Brock, who runs Media Matters, which is a propaganda agency for manipulating media and doing just this sort of thing. So, who better to run a media psyop than the pizzeria to cover all of this stuff, and then bring in actors to do it?
Yeah, well, these guys are all connected. I mean, if you go look at Alefonsus's stuff online, you'll see a ton of pictures of him at the Washington, dinner at this guy's house. It's covered in the Washington Post, I think it was. And there's always all these it was in the Washingtonian magazine. But there's always all these pictures of these guys, and they're highly connected to the media. So what you're seeing is a typical circling of the wagons by the media, who are all connected to all this. So I just think it's obvious that, it was a clear false flag. They turned the cameras on the street 3 days before, and people were talking about how the street cameras were turned before this event even happened. So, I mean, it's not like we were out there researching this stuff happened, afterwards. No, we're already talking about how they turned the cameras away from Comet Ping Pong before they carried out the false flag. And then they have the whole area taped off before the guy even walks in. I mean, he would have to jump over the police tape to even get there with his guns. And who was calling for people to go to Comet Ping Pong with guns in the first place? No one I know.
Yeah.
And of course, the immediate reaction was on my, Facebook and other things. I get these people coming at me, blaming me for what took place. Like I was calling for this to take place or something.
Well, and it was even predicted and announced everywhere within the PizzaGate research that they were going to attempt a false flag. So anybody who is familiar with all of this stuff was already aware that they were going to attempt this.
Yeah. I mean, we were predicting it, but we can't be for sure.
When it happened, it was just like, oh, come on, really?
Yeah. And then all the signs are there. You get the IMDb accredited actor with a failed career and all these things. And he ran over some kid a few weeks ago, so there's the whole motivation to let him off with something else. You know what I mean? So it's just
really, I wasn't aware of the running over the kid thing.
Yeah, there was a traffic incident a few weeks before this where Edgar Madison Welch ran over a teenager. It was in the video by Press Reset Earth. He had the news article up.
Okay. And so then he's on a rampage because somebody else is hurting kids when he's obviously an actor, etc. All right. So are you up to talk about some of the attacks that have been coming out against you, or do you, and I sent you some of those that I saw. Do you want to talk about those?
Yeah, sure. I don't care.
All right. Well, so, and you did send me an email with some of those. Do you want to just go over some of your points? Obviously you have a oil safety company that's small. People say that you're the CEO or whatever of an oil company, PR man, et cetera, marketer. So therefore you are the, I used to sell newspapers when I was a kid. So, anyway, we start off there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I have a job. I know that's kind of crazy to some people out there. YouTube doesn't pay the bills. Okay. I don't do this truther stuff to make money. I actually do this. in spite of making money, because doing this stuff jeopardizes my actual job and the government contracts and things like that that my company gets. I'm sure if my clients knew who Titus Frost was in real life, they would not be very happy. But at some point, it becomes a moral obligation to speak out and actually, take the personal responsibility to change the system that we live in, which is why I protest, which is why I was involved with Anonymous long before I was, Titus Frost. And the only reason that you even see my face right now is because we still have freedom of speech, which is why I'm speaking out. Because if we don't speak out now, we will lose freedom of speech. We'll lose all of it.
Right.
And that's what they're trying to push with this whole fake news, I don't know, BS. I'm going to keep it PG, but it's total nonsense. They've absolutely no right to call people like the Corbett Report or any of those other people on their little list propaganda news when they lie to us every day through their mainstream media outlets, from 9/11 to pick your topic of choice.
Right. And when it's even been shown legally that they are the fake news, as of recently, documents have coming out showing that, the Propaganda Act of 1948 has been reversed, et cetera, just in recent weeks. And we see all of this stuff and fake news.
Titus, I just wanted to ask Titus, okay, where would you like to see this kind of research go? In other words, there's been a tremendous amount of energy created by the PizzaGate research, the stuff that's going on at Vote Now, your research. I mean, but what is the future of this research? What would be to you like a direction we should try to head to try to organize this, or how do you see it? What is the future of this kind of research?
Well, obviously, the reason I started my documentary out by referencing some of the other cases like the Franklin Credit Union scandal and, the Hampstead situation is I don't think this is, a localized thing to DC. I think what we're dealing here with a systemic problem. I think that these types of cases are probably, happening more often than they want us to know about. And I think that we really need to basically, there you go. It's a worldwide ring of pedophiles, and they use this to control politicians pretty much everywhere. And the reason
they called the actual term for it is called the honey trap, how they use it essentially.
Yeah. And this has been going on for ages. They've always sort of used blackmail and, different things like that to control their puppets that they put into office, which is why, I don't think we should have puppets in office. I'm an anarcho-capitalist. I think it should be, a completely different system that we live in, but that's for a future time and place. If we can bare minimum get back to upholding the Constitution in America now and getting back to, a constitutional republic and away from the empire, I think that would be good for everyone in this country. And I think that starts with, demanding justice for victims and demanding that this PizzaGate thing actually gets investigated properly and not just shoved aside as fake news by a bunch of fake media organizations.
Failing fake media organizations at that. Now, did you, I did want to get back just a second to cover some of these other claims against you, just so that we clear those out of the way. You went to a fraternity in school, Pi Kappa Alpha. It could be a fraternity Masonic type organization. What do you have to say to that?
Pi Kappa Alpha at Roanoke College, which is where I went, is basically, 40 guys, and we just get together and drink. We don't even do hazing, Yeah. It's not like, some super secret Masonic order. Is there like, a stupid ritual where we all wear robes on initiation night? Yeah, like every stupid fraternity, but it's a social club. It's basically what they try to, by having fraternities and stuff like that out there, then with their like skull and bones and their Freemason crap, they can be like, oh yeah, we're just a fraternity too. But no, they're actually doing weird crap, and they're actually involved in some really sick things at the top of those orders. My Pi Kappa Alpha thing is basically just a social club for college kids.
And then your one other claim was that you have to be dirty because your wife worked for MTV, your fiance.
Yep, of course. Well, she was a reality TV star from Texas, and she's as normal as any other. Actually, more normal than my previous wife. So I don't know what to tell you about all that. I mean, my last wife left me because I was speaking out about all this stuff. That was one of the reasons, and because I like to smoke weed and things like that. But at least this girl and I have a great relationship, and the fact that she worked for MTV shouldn't be a concern for anyone. They can, the only difference between her and me is between those ages, she had a camera following her around, seeing every bad thing she did, where no one saw the bad things I did. So that's all I can say about that.
Yeah, I honestly get dozens of personal attacks against me every week, and I take the attitude that it's just a waste of time. In fact, it's actually almost a negative process to try to defend yourself against them. I think it's much better just to take the high road and just say, in general, these are ad hominem attacks, that they are created to take us off the analytic path. I'm on the analytic path. I'm trying to get some logic, facts, and reason into the world, and I'm not even going to respond. I just think that is the best approach, because if you start reacting to them, then they have you as a puppet, because then they can just say, oh, well, this is great. We'll just spend a dozen people. One will come and exhaust them, and then another will come and another claim, another. Just look. We have to grow up, and in the alternative media, and just accept that there will be trolls, and just ignore them. Just say, in general, I'm just a good person, and the main thing, the way to deal with it is just to stay on the analytic path. As long as what you're putting out there is reason and logic and facts, just stand on that. You don't have to worry about anything else. Just like you, Joe, and you, Titus, especially since we started exposing this PizzaGate stuff, I've been getting some absolutely ridiculous attacks on me. People totally distorting things and, twisting them out of context for their own agendas. And like you said, just not even address it, not even give them the time of day. Don't give them the time of day.
If they want to know the information, they can go read the case files of the this nonsense and all this stuff, and just forget that. It's
that whole world is part of how they control us. The way to respond to it is to say, please give me the error in fact or reasoning. Just produce it, and I can respond. Otherwise, I'm not even. You're invisible to me.
Yeah.
And that's what I've learned to do, because I've been hated for so long. It's like a 20-year process, but. So, the future, though, is, I'd like to see all those things you mentioned. The question is how to organize ourselves. Have you thought about that, about how we can take the energy that's been created and create an organization that has some legs to it that can, start moving in a good direction?
Well, I think, obviously keeping it open source and not having leaders is an extremely important part of it, because the moment you have any sort of identifiable leader of anything, they'll just either take that person out or corrupt them, and then the whole thing will get taken down with it. We've obviously seen that with, different things. Sabu, I can think of, with an organization that I'm still affiliated with. And basically, if you take that model and then you assign different operations of research, so you assign different people to different things, and then you sort of organize it that way, and you take different people and put them into, like we have an op pizza set up, which is people who are interested in, researching op pizza. There's a police brutality operation. There's, it's sort of split up that way. And each is part of the system and of its own way, but it takes independent researchers looking into each one. And by splitting it into operations, I think that's sort of the best way. And by not having leaders and keeping it open source, then no one can take it down. It's sort of just the idea to investigate, and anyone who wishes to join and help can. And then all of that research gets sort of compiled into like pastebin links, or we have pizzagate.press set up. I have my Steemit blog set up. So basically, that's the best way I've found to compile all the information. That way, when they come at you and they say, oh, this has been debunked, blah, 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 you can point and say, well, here's an article here where it says that bucks fishing and, camping has a basement. So when they have Alephantis out there gaslighting the public saying, oh, Comet Ping Pong doesn't have a basement. Well, Besta Pizza does, and Bucks Fishing and Camping does, and both of those are right next door, connected to this whole thing. So to say that Comet doesn't have a basement is total bullshit, and it's typical Alephantis dodging. And those interviews, I mean, have you read the transcripts of those things? I've never seen such softball questions. And then that Alex Jones character has on the eyewitness, and never in my life have I seen anyone walk all over Alex Jones in an interview. No one cuts that guy off, and that guy walked all over him in that interview. It was the fakest interview I've ever seen on InfoWars, which is really saying something.
Yeah, controlled opposition. But that shows you how sophisticated they are. I mean, they are realizing that the media is collapsing. I mean, mainstream media is basically dying a very rapid death. It's underneath 30% in terms of people who regard it as reliable information, under 30%. And of course, the demographics of viewers is just going off a cliff. So the replacement, right, is the alternative media. I mean, we are becoming slowly and steadily where people are going for information. And this can change our culture completely if it is permitted just to keep going forward. So,
well, the issue, though, Joe, is just as we recently did 2 shows on this topic on counterintelligence and the alt media, we see all of these people in alt media already, setting themselves up everywhere. And we've, exposed quite a number of them, even guests that we had on this show before and professors, et cetera, that we've had to expose.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the struggle that's going on, is that the alt media is replacing the legacy media, and the oligarchs want to make sure that they control the message.
Absolutely, yeah. The Central Entertainment Agency has gone from the New York Times and CNN to running mom and pop podcasts, essentially. Yeah.
But it's I look at that in the same way I look at people who come at you ad hominem. It's irrelevant. We just have to constantly be going in through the process that Titus described. We have to just show the research, show the facts, show the logic, show the citation, permit the public to be able to have a real alternative to go to, right? And then we have to rely on the intelligence of the audience, right? We just have to hope that as we give more facts and more analysis, that people will start to have, just a more scrutiny, a little bit clearer thinking, and just slowly come out of this dismal condition situation that we've been in, where there isn't any reality other than the one they give us. So I think a lot of progress has been made in the last 15 years, and I think in the next 15 years, a lot more will be made.
Yeah, as long as we hold our ground,
Yeah.
Yeah. I think people want the information, they just don't know it exists. I mean, when I was asleep, you'd always be like, oh, we're bored. What are we going to watch tonight? Is there any documentaries on Netflix, right?
Sure. And then, I like watching documentaries. And then you realize like 90% of the documentaries out there are just total garbage,
Yeah, it's like, another Ancient Aliens episode. Awesome. You're really getting to the bottom of the truth here. So.
But because it's on History Channel, it must be true, even though they're one of the biggest disinformation channels out there, in my humble opinion.
But all that's collapsing. All of that is just, people aren't watching that stuff. They're trying to hold the ground as best they can, but it's just, in my opinion, even the demographics that they give are incorrect. I think it's actually collapsed, far greater than they've admitted.
Well, Joe, just think of the Los Angeles Times like 15 years ago, 20 years ago. I worked for the Times back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it was this huge massive newspaper on Sunday that was like yay big, and just filled with stuff and everything. And now when you see the newspaper, it's this tiny little sliver with a few pages, almost no ads. And I mean, they're just barely printing anything anymore. So yeah, they are full on collapsing in on themselves. Great. They want to call us fake media. They've been the fake media for years. I'm not picking on the LA Times. I just mean in general, all of this propaganda that they're cranking out. And I posted an article on Facebook last week, and let me see if I can find it here, of them admitting that the mainstream media had the legal right to promote disinformation. Anyway, it's just getting out of control. Let me see, fake news term. I'm just looking for this.
Yeah, I remember very well the article that they have passed a law which enables them to use propaganda, basically to pacify the masses. I mean, it's just horrifying, but they have to do that because there's just too many people like Titus and our show that are producing real news. And when you start producing real news, you really basically come to a point where what you're doing is attacking the oligarchs, because that's what real news is,
Right. That's exactly right. That's the bottom line right there.
You can't go into reality and try to just do your very best to bring it to people and not come immediately to the darn problem, is that the oligarchs are destroying us. They're poisoning us. They use propaganda. This whole society has been infected with these people trying to create more and more narrow control. And I couldn't agree more with what Titus said earlier, that, one goal should just be to restore the Constitution, just restore the Constitution, make a republic again, because right now it isn't one.
Yeah, and they're sort of whittling away at that every day. And I saw earlier today a video by, I think it was Truth Stream Media or something like that, but they just passed a bill where they're allowed to microchip people with RFID trackable tags that basically have like autism or have, I think it was dementia or Alzheimer's. So basically they're pushing, it's for the handicapped, and then it'll be the next step, and then it'll be in,
they normalize it, and as soon as they do that, then, well, if someone has like a felony, they should have it, and the next thing you know, it's just common. Yeah, they want to, it's why they want to get rid of cash, and they want to have everything electronic, because they want to be able to control and watch every single transaction.
Yeah. On the screen here, I'm showing a article by Tom that I've had on the show a number of times, and he's discussing how Pope Francis announces that journalists have sexual disorders, talking about investigative journalists have a sexual disorder, coprophilia, and coprophagia, and so that's how they're trying to dismiss this, and even. Several years ago, CNN did a story on child pornography in the Pentagon, and they're trying to hush that up now like they did then. And all of this stuff is definitely connected,
Of course. I mean, what is the Pope doing even knowing those terms, for God's sakes? Doesn't he have something better to do than to look in encyclopedia for these things? I mean, that's just absurd. So, when they've got the Vatican as part of the PR, you can see what we're up against.
Well, absolutely. And not only that, but there's never been any charges of pedophilia leveled against the Catholic Church, has there?
Yeah, no, I don't think so. Yeah.
Never, right?
Yeah, what are they going to do? Are they going to suspect that people are they worried that people might suspect the Catholic Church is involved in pedophilia all of a sudden?
They're probably worried we're going to find some donations from them to Comet Ping Pong, honestly.
Yeah, that would be a black moment for those guys. Well,
who was the cardinal that was sitting next to Hillary at the when Donald Trump roasted Hillary at that convention?
Yeah. Well, notice at that convention that they sort of bumped their boy Trump there. I think Trump's controlled opposition personally. it's their little Jesuit party there, and he's got all the Jesuit connections, and he's been appointing all the wrong people, just like I said he was going to. So I don't know.
I had no optimism about Trump. I mean, if you go back to his uncle, when Nicholas Tesla died, the government took control of all the research. And they had one individual who analyzed it, vetted it, and then made it secret to never again see the light of day. And that individual is Donald Trump's uncle.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
So that's very telling. That family connection into government control over freedom of technology. And then the other thing is, when Trump got going in his career, the person who was really organizing his financial world was Roy Cohn. And Roy Cohn is just someone who's just as wired into the oligarchs as any human had ever, walked the planet. And so you can see that Trump doesn't come from a good place, either family-wise or business association-wise. And the idea that, he's sort of a populist is just absurd. What I've been telling people is like, look, it's a puppet show. And in order for a puppet show to be effective, so you don't see the strings, you have to have drama on the stage. And that's why you run the racist white male pussy grabbing billionaire against the cultural Marxists from outer space feminists, right? Feminists. So that way you get the greatest opposition and dialectic to get the most charge on the population, so that they don't have the obvious conclusion that, hey, this is just a puppet show. I mean, I just don't get it. 8 years ago when Obama was elected, people were going, this is going to totally change the country. The wars are going to be over because, he's a black guy with an Arabic name. All the bankers are going to be under scrutiny, and we're going to have a lot of, trials. 8 years later, the wars went nonstop. He expanded them. We went into Afghanistan.
Spine was massively increased.
Exactly. The Constitution was eroded. And not a single banker was actually prosecuted or put in jail. So,
and he never did anything about the Patriot Act, I don't think he kept one of his campaign promises.
And so the thing is, the same thing is going to happen with Trump. Is that the people who think that this guy is some kind of populist who's going to get rid of the globalists? It's just sad, because no, I don't think so. Not with his family and business backgrounds.
It would be nice if one of these guys, I mean, since he has his own money, actually wasn't bought out and paid for. But Trump was suspected, or charged several times with Jeffrey Epstein and some, scandal in this whole thing as well. And the charges have been dropped. Katie Johnson or something like that. And then those charges were dropped on November 4th. And then not only that, but Donald Trump's Hollywood manager was none other than Ari Emanuel, who was Rahm Emanuel's brother. Now, Ari and Rahm Emanuel, both of their father, now Rahm Emanuel's from the White House and former Chicago, whatever the heck he was, but both of their fathers is Benjamin Emanuel, the Israeli terrorist.
Yeah.
So Titus, you want to give us an update on your research? What have you been looking at the last week or so since you made your last documentary?
Well, one thing that I've been working on and I can't seem to get access into is the protected section on Comet Ping Pong's website.
Right.
They have, the comments that I'm seeing by people, I'm not like a hacker myself, but other people who I just said, hey, look, here's a, target for you, maybe, if you are interested. They have been looking at it, and basically the comments that I'm getting are, it has its own content delivery server set up, and we got a screenshot of that, which I put on a YouTube film. And we're just trying to get in there, because if there is any hardcore evidence, child porn being passed around, that's likely where it is.
Yeah.
Well, it'd probably be gone at this point, though. I mean, wouldn't they be insane to leave it on there by now? Or do you think they're that ballsy?
I don't know.
They're obviously watching. They're obviously watching the show right now. Last week we had Sophia Smallstorm on, and she exposed something on the Comet Ping Pong Pizza website, and by the next morning it had been scrubbed.
Yeah, they've probably swept everything out by now.
Yeah, but I'll tell you though, there are people who can go in. It's very, very difficult to get rid of everything if you know how to hack in. And it's not just the Wayback Machine, but that the disk drives leave impression. And if guys actually get in and know what they're doing, it's possible that you could breach the problem of habeas corpus. Because one of the things that the PizzaGate researchers that we've all had problems with is just that they don't. We don't have a body. We don't have an actual video of a pedophilic crime. We have videos of a crowd engaging in enjoyment about it. We've got all of the collection, the photographic collections of the pedophile. We've got the code, but habeas corpus. It's like, where's the body? And if someone could get in and actually get the more graphic, the stuff that crossed the line. That would just be incredibly valuable. It would just take the whole investigation to a much broader public level.
Yeah, so we did track some of their financial transactions to this thing called Cheese eBay, which was a eBay account where they were selling hard drives, and the receivers of these hard drives were leaving some very interesting comments about the products they were receiving and paying extravagant amounts of money for these hard drives. And this connects to the Hawaii hot dog stand email. So basically,
there's a loud noise in the background. I don't know if somebody can.
I know what that is. That's a dog trying to get through a door.
Yeah, it's my dog going nuts.
No, it's okay. No, it's all right. I think it doesn't bother me at all.
Chill, dude. He's just being sorry.
I can tell what that was. I know the sound.
He'll go out in 10 minutes. He'll be fine.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what about these hard drives? Go ahead.
Yeah, so basically that's what we're trying to figure out is who's, buying them. And we have, obviously the seller. We have his IP address. So that's going to be hopefully in the new film that I'm working on. And there's some other connections that, were pretty easy to find when you looked at the still publicly available, Instagram accounts, Facebook accounts, and all those types of things. I've been basically inundated with stuff like, connections to ice cream shops that have the same, logos and stuff, same code. I've got, so much information to dig through that's probably going to take me at least a month. And at the same time, what I want to do is I want to see what plays out while I'm going through this information and vetting stuff, so that when I produce another documentary, which I'm going to do on this at the end of this whole thing, just to sort of wrap up everything that took place, everything that was uncovered, everything that's been vetted and things like that, so that we can have a solid, well-vetted documentary that people can use the reference and be like, look, this is all the stuff the media never debunked. This is all the stuff that we still have. These are the remaining questions. And it's probably going to be something like, these are the unanswered questions about Pizzagate or something like that.
One piece of very strong evidence that has never been debunked was the emails of Breitbart, where he called Podesta running an underage sex slave organization. I saw the one tweet, but then I've recently found 3 others, which had exactly the same verbiage. I don't know if you've seen them, but there's actually 3 more tweets which also reference that. And then I had one other point I wanted to ask you a question about. So WikiLeaks released the file that had the FBI's summation, an article concerning pedophile codes. Right? Are you familiar with that? That the actual information, that has the triangle, that has the kind of triangle swirl inside it, and the different ways that pedophiles represent themselves symbolically. The FBI article was brought out as a WikiLeaks tweet, right? It was brought out at the same time that a lot of this information was starting to go around the internet. And I thought, well, that indicates that someone inside WikiLeaks must know the code, because if you recall, Assange was saying, oh, there's going to be stuff in there that Hillary can go to prison for. And then people are saying, well, what's that? What is he talking about? then out comes the emails, and then researchers start looking at the stuff, and they go, wait a second, what's the spirit cooking? What is the, and then they start looking at what are all this pizza and hot dog code language. And then the next thing WikiLeaks released the tweet, which had the email, excuse me, but the website address of the FBI's document. And I've always wondered if anyone's ever tracked that backwards, because it suggests to me that someone inside of WikiLeaks absolutely understood what they were releasing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. That seems like sound analysis of that.
Well, and who was the other guy that hacked? Was it Wiener's computer, somebody's computer, and then is now in prison for that, right? Because and he sent that in saying that this was a sex scandal.
Yeah, and didn't was it Guccifer too just come out from in jail and say that Hillary's connected to a satanic cult? I think he pretty much said that straight out, and he wanted people to know that because he was involved with probably some of the releasing of the information. And I think the WikiLeaks stuff came from within DC. I think this stuff all got leaked to them from within the government itself. I think WikiLeaks is the outlet for some sort of internal operation by either the FBI or the CIA to release information to the public. I don't think it's people hacking into things. I think it's them leaking information out, and WikiLeaks is just...
I think people within the government, within the intelligence community have just had enough of the BS, and they're not all dark, apparently. And some of them are trying to get some of this stuff out. And I was suggesting that, there seemed to be some battle going on between different intelligence cabals and the CIA on one side, et cetera. And it does seem that this was going on. At least that's the way that they're presenting it to us. Now, one thing that I wanted to bring up that's been a hot issue for a lot of people is Kim Noble and her artwork, and if she's involved or not. If she's a victim of all of this and was a victim as a child, and that's why she's done her artwork. Now, you have come across evidence, and I think I had seen it before, of her artwork being displayed at Ping Pong Pizza. Do you have primary evidence for that her artwork was on display there?
Yeah, I think it was on display. That's what the murals were that they ripped down. If you recall the earlier videos, I have some of them downloaded on my hard drive of like the performances and stuff there. There was one that was like really odd where it was like a kid's band or something performing there. And I forget what it was called, but like I downloaded all the stuff, put on external hard drives and flash drives so that people couldn't access my computer to delete the stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically, I think, we do. I think I do have video of the artwork.
If you do, I would love it if you would share it with Jan. If there's
this is a topic that comes up almost every day. So if we can, cover this. What's that?
I'll go through it and double check, but I'm almost 100% sure when I looked through it the first time and saved all that stuff that the artwork was up. And then
this is a key issue, and we really need to get this one taken care of because a lot of people think that she was innocent and not a part of it. And so if her artwork was on display there at Comet Pizza showing all of this pedophilia, that's huge.
Well, she could be innocent in terms of she created the art, and that was just the art was attractive because of the people.
Yeah, but what weren't these full-size original paintings that were on display there?
Yeah, they were.
But I'm just saying is that I don't think that the fact that the paintings is there implicates Noble. But what I do think it does is it shows that the theme of pedophile art is art that can be basically enjoyed by someone with a pedophilic background and perspective. That theme is there's another element in it. If Noble's work was in fact on display there. And Titus, what you've said is exactly as it's been described by people. People said, well, I saw videos that showed the actual artwork, which I can't find anymore. So if you were able to find it, then
and there's artwork like this that was on display there that I have verified, or one very similar to this showing decapitated children, etc.
I don't think that's Noble, though.
Yeah, I know. I'm saying that there has been stuff like this. I'm not saying
the art was as creepy as could be. No, there is a commonly seen on the internet background of a wall at Comet Pizza that has the people holding the heads of smaller individuals. I mean, that's something you could just see in a number of clips. But I don't think it was Noble. That's
Yeah, I think people should get this Kim Noble issue taken care of. At least show and whether or not the art was on display there, and then if it was on display there, how much of it. If there was a lot of her artwork on display there, either they purchased a lot of it or she was doing an art display there. And if it was an art display, it could show something possibly more egregious.
Yeah, I don't think it's well, I mean, we don't have, even if it was her artwork up there, I don't think you can say that she was 100% involved in all this. So, I mean, for people to be going after her anyways is kind of pointless.
Yeah,
you really need to focus on.
We've got to look at the connections between the Podestas and Elefantas. That's really where the meat is, and that's what they're trying to defend. Obviously, one amusing thing. I don't know if you saw it, but Time Magazine last week had on the back page. They do these personality profiles of people that are like kind of in the news, sort of just people who have interesting stories. You know what they did last week? Maria Abramovic. It's beyond belief. I mean, I opened up Time Magazine and they're on the back page and not a word about spirit cooking, not a word about, I mean, it's just like she's
nothing about mock human sacrifices.
No, it was all like, here's the
menstrual blood and semen rituals.
No, that was all not there. It was all about she's the grand old dame of performance art. Talked about like her family and how they had this heroic struggle as communists in World War II, and it was beyond belief, and it was just a classic normalization meme where they're just trying to introduce someone and now you're comfortable with them. There's no way this person could be doing any horrible things, but when you look at that and you go, well, wait a second, where's the blood? Where's all of the stuff that's in the video? I wanted to mention something to you that's kind of an interesting thing. So, you have that one weird picture, which actually I did research in because I saw the video that you produced, which had the term the Moloch machine.
Yep.
Okay, so the Moloch.
That's that handkerchief photo. Let me see if I can find that here.
And anyway, that's all of the stuff there is a gift from Alice Louise Waters. She's a famous restaurateur. She has Chez Panisse, I think the name of it is, in Berkeley. And then anyway, okay, so the Moloch machine is really, a very dark symbolic reference in this context because, if what's going on underneath Comic Pizza is that I think it is, then you could use the Moloch machine, which talks about the underground and subterranean. Yeah, see, there it is. It's the Moloch machine. So what's underneath that is a print, I believe, from Fritz Lang's movie, where he uses the term Moloch machine. Notice it's MASC, so it's a German, term. So I'm sure that underneath that, if you could pull the thing back, you'd see the print from the actual film. But what's interesting, if you go into this woman, Alice Louise Waters, she just did actually I don't know when it occurred, but it wasn't too far in the past, where she had this performance she took all across the United States. It was called Coast to Coast, I think. And she had, in the performance, she had a yurt that she took to different cities. And in the yurt, on a loop, was Kenneth Anger's film Lucifer Rising. Right? Now, you see, this is where you get, out of the lifetime actor into the real stuff, because that's not behavior that normal people would do. You wouldn't take Anger's film. There's Moloch machine. Yeah, you don't want to be underneath there. That's bad. So anyway, and also this is, you mentioned Freemasonry. Lang sets up the Moloch machine as a function of Freemasonry in the movie. He's got all these one-eye representations. He's constantly doing it. So the Moloch machine is actually a good thing for people to see because it's really a representation of what our world is.
You mean Metropolis?
Well, Metropolis, exactly. Yeah, but of course, yeah. So Metropolis is the it's just Lang, talking, the big Freemason talking about the future, about what they're going to do, and so when you see this person, giving it to Alefantes as kind of a flippant little, this is something fun for you to look at, and then look at the fact that she was like taking Lucifer Rising on a promoting tour. I mean, it's just, to me, I think Anger's film is so bizarre and twisted that the idea of someone taking it like door to door across America, showing it to people, just really requires an explanation.
So I'm showing on the screen here some photos of sacrifices to Moloch, child sacrifices to Moloch. So this is exactly
Moloch is. See, this is the context. This is the context. It's just really grim. So you need to ask this individual: were you referring to this sacrifice, and is this like an inside joke that you're kind of sharing with Alefantes? Does this have something to do with your promotion of Lucifer Rising and this kind of stuff?
Yeah, and that right there would be Bohemian Grove.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we have the Moloch sacrifice every year, supposedly. So,
although Bob Weir's claims that he's never caught any child sacrifices there.
Right.
Yeah, see, they probably don't do it there anymore, but they probably did in the past before, the whole thing got blown up. So
exactly, yeah.
It's just like the Comet Ping Pong thing.
Who blew it up? It was Alex Jones claiming that he broke in and walked around with a camera. Like, I doubt that would happen where he just, snuck in there like that. I'm a little skeptical of that story.
The thing about Alex Jones that always made me really suspicious is he had an interview with David Rothschild. And he's like the Zion of the family. He's this young man. He's in his mid-20s, maybe 30 now, but he is basically the individual that will, inherit the whole Rothschild world. And he came on Alex Jones, and it was just obviously, to me, just a complete setup, where Rothschild is just the most reasonable, interesting, kind of clear-minded person, sweet, and Alex is just this frothing, kind of unreasonable person, and you just go, wait a second. This was like years ago. This was probably 5 years ago when Jones was nothing. Why would, David Rothschild come on a show with this, kind of, low-level minion? It just didn't sit right with me. And I've always been suspicious of him ever since.
Yeah. Well, now Donald Trump calls him after he wins the election to thank him for the election win. So
yeah. So
you see, I think what happened there was they knew that a whole bunch of people were waking up to sort of their crap, and they figured out the best way to reel those people right back into the system was to push forward this charismatic savior figure for the alt-right, which is all these disillusioned people. And they gave him Donald Trump. And now all those people that were totally disillusioned with the system, that believe 9/11 was a lie and all that, all those people now believe in the system again. They all think they are, legitimately taking back America just by voting, which is the easy way out. Because if they can just go and push a button and vote, or, cast a ballot, they're going to take the easiest way out. That's why Walmart is one of the biggest stores in this country, because it's the easy way out, get everything in one place. Convenience.
Yeah. Titus.
Well, that's how they always get you, is convenience, right? But we've only got about 2 minutes left here, guys. Titus, you want to give
Titus, let people know how they can get a hold of you.
Okay. So I'm on Twitter @ImperatorTruth. I got the Titus Frost YouTube channel. You can hit me up on Gab. I just joined Gab today, which is like a new Twitter type thing, Titus Frost there. And that's pretty much it. I'm on Steemit, which everyone who's listening should join because you get free cryptocurrency for joining it, which undermines the Federal Reserve. So
Well, and I've been thinking a lot about that, and I've been into cryptocurrency, but I'm starting to have some second thoughts that might have been a intelligence creation as well. I mean, an entire history of transactions in one blockchain that can't ever be gotten rid of. You got to think about that, and I take Bitcoin, et cetera, and I've done shows on it. So there's lots of question there. Again, I'm Jan Irvin, GnosticMedia.com. Please support the show, GNOSTICmedia.com. Joe, your information?
Just go to CaesarsMessiah.com. Hey, Titus, thank you so much, brother. Really good documentary and really good information. Really appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely, Titus. Thank you, and thank you for coming on the show tonight. Good luck to you on your future research and video, and hope we can get all of this out to the public. I have never seen an effort so heavy as this to suppress information.
Yeah, and I want to thank Biggie and everyone at CCN for giving us this venue. Thank you, Biggie, and
support the network as well, right?
Because it's really important. All right, guys, give them hell. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye, everyone. See you next week. Take care.
If we want to change the world, we must first change the media. Mainstream media exists for the purposes of indoctrination and manipulation of public perception. The world of free and independent media is growing, and with the upsurge in information now available in the public domain, it has never been easier to access free and independent media. The exploration of this information resulted in an experimental project which would provide a fully supported space for researchers, whistleblowers, and seekers of all kinds to express themselves and educate the world. On the 1st of January 2015, Conscious Consumer Network was launched to the world. Nobody thought we would make it this far, but CCN is the longest running free and independent media network of its kind. CCN is a unique collaboration of hearts and souls, bringing you information from different perspectives to educate and inform. Since we started CCN, we have had only one desire: the pursuit of a free, fair, just, sustainable world, and this has not changed. Having overcome many challenges over the last 2 years, CCN is here to stay, and we've got great things lined up for 2017. Help keep CCN on the air by supporting the 2017 Network Support Fund.